Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to Great Chefs of Greater Brookland. I'm going to start us off. My name is Nadia Mercer, and I'm the Executive Director for Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. And I just wanted to welcome you all here tonight, and thank you so much for your support. This is an annual fundraiser that we do, and because of you and your purchases of tickets and raffle tickets, we surpassed our goal of $3,000. So we're closer to 3,500, which is great. It's a super success for us. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our chefs. Later in the program, Kathy will introduce our chefs, but I'll just say welcome to our chefs and thank you for being here and doing this once again. This is their second year or third for Alexandra, I believe. Okay, so get started. Next slide. So on the program for tonight, this will be about an hour and a half long. Chef Alexandra Salomon is going to be making French onion soup, and she's going to be demonstrating how you can do that at home. And she's also generously provided 2 portions of the soup for the raffle prize. That is currently in my freezer for one lucky winner. And then after Chef Alexandra presents, Chef Saskia Sams-Yeboah will show us how to make a classic fruit tart, which will be a really good combination. So now I'll share with you an overview of the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village and introduce you to our team. So here is our board of directors. Everyone mostly is a neighbor or lives in Ward 5. We have Emma Bronstein, who's our president and founder of the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. We have Kathy Madison, who's our vice president, and she's also the chair of the fundraising committee. And this is her 3rd year running this program and her last one running this program. So we're so thankful, Kathy, just to have you do this once again. Ra Amin is our board member. Lindsay Jordan, our treasurer. Laura Werby is on our program committee, and she's also the lead of our knitting group. And we have Bessie Watts, who's also on our fundraising committee, and Stephen Liu, program committee, and Ali Shandell, who's our secretary. So all these people make it happen, as well as our members, of which we have 45 currently, and we also have over 25 village volunteers. And just a little background on Greater Brookland Village. We are a grassroots neighborhood-based nonprofit, and we are here in Ward 5. We are one of 13 villages in Washington, D.C., so you may not have heard of a village before, but there are 13 already in D.C. We're the newest one and the only in Ward 5. There's also 70 villages in the DMV and over 300 villages in the nation. And most villages are all very similar in the fact that they serve a small geographic area, very neighborhood-based. So our village serves Brookland, Langdon, Woodridge, and University Heights. And our mission is to help neighbors develop relationships and tools to age successfully in community. So how do we do that? We accomplish these goals by increasing social connections, including intergenerational ones, through programs and activities. We want to give neighbors of all ages meaningful opportunities to be of service to one another and share their passions and gifts. That's an important piece of living with purpose. We equip our neighbors with the tools and knowledge we need to age well through workshops and resources. We help members answer questions like, what can I do to prevent a fall? How often should I get my hearing checked? How do I operate in this increasingly digital world? And we connect members with vetted volunteers who can help with projects to allow them to age independently. And most of our volunteers are members as well, and are local in our neighborhood. Okay, so that's a little overview of the Greater Brookland Intergenerational Village. Now I'm going to turn it over to Kinyofu Mlimlengu. She is our community organizer, and she's going to give you a quick Zoom overview, just so everybody knows how to use the platform. And later you'll see her again to discuss membership and volunteering. Okay, thank you again for being here. I'm going to stop screen sharing.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Again, my name is Kinyofu, and Nadia now speaks Swahili because she was able to pronounce my name just perfectly. So I'm sure you all have been around the block a couple of times on Zoom, so you know how to mute and unmute. So that's that button on the left. If you are on a computer, you will press it and then you'll be muted. There will be, when it's muted, there's a red line through it. And you will see in your square where your face is that you see the microphone with the red line. So when you're muted, then we can't hear you. We might want to hear you. So if you are muted, you want to come off of mute so that we can hear you. And the video, if you want to show yourself, so the video works the same way. There's a video camera next to the mute button. And if there's a red line on it, or if you see you won't see it on your, the red line, if it's there, you click it. It works as a toggle, and then your screen will come on and we will see you. If you're on, like I'm on, when I cut this off, then you don't see me. I turn it on and you see me. So we have, let's see what else we need to know. There's a chat box on the bottom. So I took you to the mute and then the stop video. Scroll over to the center. If you're on your computer, I'm gonna come back to if you're on the phone. Scroll over on the bottom to the center and you see the word chat. If you click that, so it looks like a little chat bubble. Click that and a box will pop up and you will be, there you go. Thank you for communicating on chat. See, those are the people who've been around the block a couple of times. So definitely communicate. If you have any questions, drop that in the chat. And if you want to communicate with someone privately, you can do that. If you click on that red everyone with the little down arrow, if you click that, the menu of our names will show up and then you can say, hey, I like your earrings, where'd you get them from, or something like that. If you don't see your chat there because your screen might be small, then you would look for that in a hidden menu, which is 3 dots. So click on the 3 dots and then you will see the word chat come up if you don't see it already. Okay, and for those of you who are on your phone, to hit the mute button, it's the same bottom left of the screen. Just tap the screen and it will appear because it's probably hidden. So if you tap the screen, then your menus will show, click mute. Same thing with the video, click video. And the chat is in the same general center section of your screen. And last 2 things I want to share is the view. So if you're on your phone, your view is going to work differently than the view on your computer. So if you look to the top right of your screen, there's a word view. If you click on the view, you'll see a drop down. One menu option is going to say speaker. The other one is going to say gallery. If you're on your computer, one of those is checked. So gallery is where you see the grid of boxes of everybody on the screen. And so as I'm speaking, if you're on gallery view, you see everybody, but my box is highlighted. If you click speaker, then it would be the one who is speaking, that's who you would see. So if you click speaker, you'll just see me. However, through the session today, I'm going to be spotlighting the chef so that you can get an up close and personal view of the chef and you don't need to worry about the speaker or the gallery view. And there's something else I was going to say. I think that's it. So any questions? There's something else, any other Zoom tool that I should speak about that I didn't? Okay.
Okay, so next up, we are going to draw the first raffle prize before we get started. So Bessie.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Okay, really quickly, and forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name. I'm so sorry. But to receive the $100 gift card to Wardman Wines, Emma Brownstein, and that is super well deserved given all of her work with the organization over the past year plus. So very exciting. And then a $100 gift card to the Salt Line, which is a restaurant here in DC. Ina Brolis. Yay, Ina. She's on the call. And then a shipment of a pie from a little pie company. It'll be their sour cream apple walnut pie to Aaliyah Summers. And those are the first three.
Great. Thank you so much, Bessie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to turn it over to Kathy Madison, our board vice president and chair of the fundraising committee. And Kathy's going to introduce this lovely event and introduce our first chef.
Hi, everyone. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure to introduce Chef Alexandra Salomon. She's been with us all 3 years of this event. Alexandra grew up in Paris and studied in both France and the United States. She was a passionate cook at a young age, hosting many dinner parties for friends and family, gaining culinary skills from a few classes and avid reading. After years working in international business and digital marketing, those of us who know Chef Alexandra know that she's very much a Renaissance woman. Alexandra took a break from the corporate world and returned to Paris to pursue a professional culinary certificate from Le Cordon Bleu, graduating second in her cuisine class and third in pâtisserie. Alexandra has also studied at Le Notre, La Varenne, the Institute of Culinary Education in New York, La Maison Arabe in Morocco, and Let's Cook in Istanbul. I love that, Let's Cook in Istanbul, to name just a few. Today, Alexandra offers her services as a personal chef, small party catering, and prepares creative menus with French and Mediterranean influences for the Washington, D.C. area. So now I'm happy to turn this over to Chef Alexandra.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the very warm welcome. Thrilled to be part of this community and this event. I think fundraising for the Greater Brooklyn Villages is a wonderful cause, and really thrilled to be part of it. So little caveat here, I actually am not in my own house. I'm in the midst of moving. So I'm in a friend's kitchen, but welcome to my friend's kitchen, which works perfectly well. And tonight we're going to do French onion soup. So French onion soup is really one of the classic bistro recipes that you find in pretty much all bistros in France and any labeled French bistro outside of France. Great menu item, especially this time of year, and frankly, especially today, where if you're watching this in replay, it might not be as cold as today, but today it's freaking freezing. So a nice warm soup warms you to the bone, good comfort food, very tasty, very flavorful. History of it is, in certain circumstances, dates back to the Roman era. Onions have been around for quite a long time. However, it really became popular in the mid 1800s or mid 18th century, so 1700s. In France, when it started coming up in a lot more restaurants, where it was not just onion soup or soupe à l'oignon, it was soupe à l'oignon gratiné. And the gratiné part is the cheesy, gooey part that goes on top that really made it more popular. Funny that, melted cheese, who can pass that up? So that's how you, of course, see it in most places now. The recipe that I gave in the stock, I gave option of beef or chicken. The traditional recipe is with beef broth. So for the raffle, I made it with beef broth. Here I thought I had beef broth and I only have chicken. Both work equally well. Beef is just the traditional one. You can even make it vegan with a vegetarian broth, and that's perfectly fine because everything else that goes into it, it can easily be vegan or just vegetarian. So that's a little story on that. So the first thing that you need to do is get a bunch of onions. And then with your onions, you're going to cut them. So I first peel them, then I cut my onion in half, then I put it down, and then you're going to very thinly slice your onion. So what you want your onion to do to look like when you've sliced it is really have it very, very thin. And you then, so sometimes the slice will stay together like this slice will come and look like this. And what you want to do when you're putting it in the bowl is like separate it all up so that it ends up being little pieces like that. So once you've cut all of your onions up, the recipe I gave you is 4 to 6 people. I find that, you know, 4 is a perfect serving if you're really having that as your main dish, especially with the bread and the cheese. If you're and sometimes doing it with a little salad to start with, so little green salad, mixed greens, little French vinaigrette dressing, and then you have your soup as your main. If you're having the soup as an appetizer and then have, you know, whatever you're having for dinner, then it will feed 6 people. So that's kind of where the 4 to 6 ratio comes in, really depending on how much of the meal you're making of it and not. So in a Dutch oven, I happen to have a Brookland, but obviously any Dutch oven will work. You're going to put your flame on, and you're going to put all your onions in here. Now, it is a game of patience. So you put all your onions in, you're like 10 minutes later, you're like, yeah, that doesn't look like it's gone anywhere. That's French onion soup. It is a slow process. You can't speed it up, otherwise what you're doing is you're charring the onions, but not cooking them through. The beauty of it is that you have this great flavor that comes from the slow cooking of the onions and the slight caramelization of them that then gets diluted in the broth. But when you're taking a bite of it, they should be melting in your mouth. It is not a crunchy vegetable soup, right? So if you're charring them on the outside because you're at 20 minutes and you're like, my onions aren't done, let me turn the flame up, you're just going to get a crunchy onion soup, and that's not quite the feeling that you're going for. You want it to be kind of velvety, smooth, melt in your mouth. So with that said, I got the show started a little bit early so that we aren't watching the paint dry or the onions cook, which is the case here. So you're going to be watching this. It doesn't have to be like a hawk, like you don't have to be here for 40 minutes stirring. You know, if you have your flame on medium, you know, coming in and out of the kitchen, stirring it a little bit, just making sure that, you know, nothing's too high, nothing's burning. That should do the trick. These, I'd say, took a good 45 minutes to cook. When I made it the other night, it was 40. You know, was my flame a smidge bigger, better, by, you know, who knows, different stoves. But yes, patience is the key. So after you've put all your onions and you've patiently waited your 40 minutes or so, your onions are going to look like almost pasty. So they're really soft and kind of clumped together. There's no separating of them. They're softly cooked. So if you take one, and you should be able to kind of smush it very easily. If you taste the same thing, maybe a slight little crunch, but They will be moist and they will be, soft and edible. I see something that popped up here.
Alexandra, yeah, the question is there a specific type of onion?
Yes, so that's a very good question. The onions I use most often are the yellow onions. But you can easily do it with red onions as well. I sometimes do a mix, so I think the winner has like 2 red onions to the 4 or 5 yellow that I made. You can also, and I wouldn't do it, too much, but a mix. So I wouldn't do full leeks, but leeks is another thing. Leeks is a variety of onion. It is slightly softer in taste. I wouldn't say pungent because I love onions, but it is a more mild taste. So you can definitely use those. I would do, maybe a 1 to 1 portion of that to 2 portions of regular onion. What you don't want to use is vidalias or vidalias. They're too sweet. And especially in the caramelization, which sweetens it a bit, it would be too sweet. So yellow is my favorite. Yellow and red is the second mix that I would recommend. So once you've gotten this nice big clump of onions, and you feel that they're soft, what you're going to do is you're going to take your wine. You're going to make sure it's good wine because you don't want to cook with something you wouldn't want to drink. Yummy. And you put a little bit of the wine in so that you can deglaze your pan. So deglazing is any of these little caramelized bits that have come in, and I've already done it a little bit because again, it was cooking down, but that gets all the nice flavors off the bottom of your pan. Did I see another question pop up?
No, that was me putting your answer in.
Okay.
Do you need to use like a sweet wine or a dry wine? Does it matter because it's not a lot?
It doesn't really matter, mostly because it's going to evaporate a bit. So, kind of use wines that you would like. I personally prefer Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Grigios for this, but I've done it with Chardonnay, which is much sweeter and butterier. That I just don't particularly love that wine, but it cooks beautifully in this. So I would definitely go more for white wine than red wine, though. It is a white wine thing.
Okay.
Then I have a little bit of flour, and you kind of sprinkle that on top, and it just thickens the soup a little bit. It's not fully necessary, but I feel it gives it a little bit more texture. So kind of just, so it looks like a little sprinkle, nothing too heavy. So once you do that, you want to make sure that you're cooking that flour down. So that's really just stirring it and making sure that it's incorporated and giving that kind of a minute or so just to make sure it's cooked. All right, then your stock. So it's for the full recipe, it's 8 cups. One of these guys is 4 cups. So if you're doing, half the recipe, which is kind of 2 nice big portions, it's one full thing of these. And again, I happen to have chicken here. You can do all beef, or you can do kind of a mixture of chicken and beef. So if I'm making a full portion, I often have 1 carton of beef stock and 1 carton of chicken stock. And that way it's easy to mix it so you don't have in your fridge, like half a thing that you're going to use like 8 months later. So that's the secret on that. All right, so now that you've put your beef stock in, you're going to put your flame up a little bit to bring this to a boil. You know, make sure that it does get up to the boil, because the flour will thicken the soup once it has boiled. So that is the reason to get that up to a boil. what I will often do as well is when I am cooking this, again, depending on how patient I was in the 40 minutes of waiting for the onions to cook, I will, if the onions need just a smidge more softening, you can boil your soup and then keep it boiling for another 5-10 minutes to really make sure that the whole thing has incorporated. Again, I'm not going to make you watch me boil water, so I'm probably going to skip that, but I did get those onions nice and ready beforehand. So while that gets up to speed, if you cover it, it boils faster. We're going to get our toast ready. So right here I have a baguette. You can use what they call it French bread. It's not French bread in my humble opinion, because I grew up in France and so I was around French bread. But if you go to any Whole Foods or Giant, Public, Safeway, etc., and buy a French bread loaf, they're usually just a little bit wider. They're actually the perfect width to have a nice wedge that will fit in into on a oven proof container. So what I'm going to use to go in the oven is one of these guys that is firmware that can go in the oven. Now, if you do not have anything like this and all you have is like your regular soup bowls, that's totally fine. You can do this whole montage of putting things together without putting it in the oven. What you're going to do then is put your so first toast your toast, which is where I was going with this. So I'm going to cut 2 slices to fit into my little bowl, and I'm just going to toast those first. So the winter portion that I gave has a nice sourdough loaf from World Market. And I sometimes make my own loaf, but I admit that did not happen because I didn't have any of my own equipment. So anyway, it's a nice sourdough loaf, but it's untoasted. So toast your bread first, then you put your cheese on top of it. And then, if you have a dish, I'll show you what you do. If you don't have the dish, what you do is you toast your cheese on the bread, then put your toast with the cheese in the bowl, and then put your soup on top, and it will kind of raise that way. So you'll still have all the cheesiness and the bread and the stuff, but you don't need to put the whole thing in the oven. So it's kind of like 2 parts.
Alexandra, is there a cheese that you would recommend?
Oh, yes, there is. So cheese is very important. This is made with, again, you can do variants on it. Gruyere is the French cheese, or I shouldn't say it's French because actually it's Swiss, but it's Swiss cheese. Gruyere, though, is a particular type of Swiss cheese, whereby American Swiss cheese is a little bit milder. Gruyere has a really kind of earthy, nutty flavor to it. You can get it in the US pretty easily. Whole Foods has it, which is where I got it. So I bought 2. Gruyere. It comes from the southern part of Switzerland, in Appellation, Gruyere, La Gruyere is the name of the place. Obviously, it's also made in Savoie in France, but it is a Swiss cheese in origin. Now, it comes in a block, so I grate it. I will also often mix a little bit of mozzarella in it, because the mozzarella can be really nice and gooey, but Gruyere melts beautifully. Now, if you do not have Gruyere, or you're like, holy cow, this costs like 4 times the price of Swiss cheese, I get it. You can use Swiss cheese. It works perfectly fine. It will be just as well. So I wouldn't use only mozzarella, though. Only mozzarella will be a little too oily. So you're better off doing mozzarella as a bit of a blend. Is someone, you're typing the answers?
Yeah.
Thank you for answering.
All right. This is almost coming to a boil. Give it another minute. And our toasty toasts are not ready. So then what we're going to do is get our toasts once our toasts are ready, and we're going to put those in our bowl first, and then put our soup on top. Now the other thing is, if your bread is just not the freaking shape of your bowl, that's totally fine. Or it just doesn't work as a slice. You can totally do croutons with this. So you can cut your bread into chunks and toast your chunks, and then use that as, you know, putting it in, putting the thing. So it doesn't have to be a slice. The bread will still rise whether it is a slice or whether it's big croutons. I wouldn't buy store-bought croutons because those are too dried out. And you certainly don't want anything that has too much of a flavor that then detracts from the flavor of your soup. So little tiny crouton bites is just going to end up being mush. But if you cut it into, like, chunks of bread, that works beautifully. Yeah. Okay, so back to our soup, which is now boiling very nicely. So again, here, what you want to make sure that you're doing is boiling your soup and making sure that your onions are nice and soft. Now, I seasoned this as I was cooking the onions. So you want to make sure that after you've put the oil and butter in your pan, dumped all your onions in right at the beginning of the cooking down, you can put your salt and a little bit of pepper in at that time. Every now and then I'll use some garlic. It is not necessary. I just particularly love garlic. Not too much though, because it's not garlic soup, it's onion soup. So maybe for a full recipe, I would use 2 or 3 cloves. Half a recipe, I use 1 clove, or I use the dried granulated garlic. So not garlic powder, but the dried garlic, granulated garlic. So here, right at the end, I always give it a little taste.
Alexandra, I'm
Yeah.
curious, what do you mean? Why not use the granulated garlic? What's the difference?
Or
The powdered
the
garlic.
So some garlic powders are too thin, that they lose their flavor. They're not as flavorful as granulated garlic can be.
Okay.
So it still can be dry, but yeah, and some of them are called garlic. I think it's called garlic powder. And you'll see that it's very thin. So it's great for flavoring foods, but less so for flavoring the soup. Just like the salt, if you have a coarser salt, I would recommend coarser salt. What you can call crystal salt, the pink Himalayan salt that you use a grinder with. I would use that much more than I would use table salt or a very thin salt in soups.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. All right. So this is flavored very nicely, and my onions are really nice and soft. So you can see here they're nice and this is probably hotter than I should get it up. All right, let's see if everybody can see my egg, sort of, kind of, without my spilling it everywhere. All right. So next up is looking at our little toast. Oh, look at this, they're beautiful. Beautiful and toasty, so they're not too brown, but I can feel that they have a nice little crunch toast to them. So that is great. So I put them in the bottom of my, you probably could fit a third one or half of one in there as well. So then what I'm going to do is, I should have gotten this ready, is well, all right. Don't have a ladle. but that's okay. We'll use this instead. All right, this is the joys of cooking in a house that's not yours, but that's all good. So here you're gonna ladle your soup on top of your toast.
I
So-
find measuring cups to be perfect ladles.
Perfect. So
Mhm.
here, if you can kind of see at an angle without my face, you see here, right there, the toast came up. And kind of see the border of the toast here. So it was at the bottom, but the toast will lift up. So that's why you do that first. All right, so then with here, you're going to take your cheesy goodness and you're going to put, just sprinkling it nice and generously on top here. Perfect, like that. So you want to have it nicely covered as a nice layer on your soup. Then what you want to do is put your oven to broil. You can broil it high. Now the thing with broiling is the opposite of cooking your onions and walking away and coming back. Broiling, you need to be standing right there because it will go from cheesy goodness melty to fire alarm going off in your house and you just burnt your whole soup. So you're going to put this in and watch it like a hawk. It should take, well, we'll see, but usually about 45 seconds to a minute. And, you know, take a peek. Again, if you're not sure, turn the light on and stare at it. Given that it's broil, it's the top part of your oven versus top and bottom, you can open the door. Like if you're not trying to heat the soup. So if you're like, I never use the broiler and I'm gonna, burn down the house, keep the door open and look at it, and that will take care of that problem. So yeah, we use another 30 seconds. So any
I have a
questions?
question.
Waiting for that?
Yes. Emma asked, how would we handle this part if we didn't have a small oven safe soup dish?
Right, so then you would use, like a soup dish, soup. But what you would do is you put your bread on a guy like this, and put your cheese on top. Toast the bread and the cheese. Well, first toast the toast a little bit because otherwise the bottom won't get done. So you don't need to toast it as much as I did. Then you put your cheese and you toast your toasty cheese. Then you put that down at the bottom of this bowl and pour your soup on top. Your toast and cheese will rise. So it looks a little bit different in that it's not, cheese to the end, but otherwise it's 85% of the way there without an oven-proof, soup bowl.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
And I have another question. Do you need to preheat the broiler?
No, well, I have the oven on to toast my toast. If you're toasting your toast in a toaster, then you don't need the oven on. The broiler will, I give it maybe a minute or two, but it does not need to heat too much because again, you're not trying to heat the vacuum of the oven. You're just trying to get a very hot heat right at the top because that's what it's doing, is really just coming down from the top to melt your cheese. You're not cooking the soup, so the surrounding temperature doesn't matter. That's why if you need to have the door open, for the 2 minutes that you're doing it, it's not going to change any of the effect. Yeah, and if you're reheating the soup, and which is why I did the soup and the toast separately, you can microwave it, and that'll be perfectly fine, and then pour it on top of your toast.
Okay. By the way, do you need to grate the cheese? Can you slice the cheese?
You can. It works better grated because it goes more evenly, and you can kind of put more on it. The slicing, you know, is still going to be melted cheese, but it'll be thinner. So you could just use several slices. If you have sliced cheese, the other thing to make it one step closer to grated is put your slices down and then slice through them. So then you have like, I guess, spaghetti pieces of cheese. And that will work better because you can kind of, you know, still bunch it together. So you don't need to dice it, like you don't need to go crazy, but put the piles up and then slice them. So then you have like, I guess, strips that are about this big, and that will make the effect much better.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, this needs just one more minute and we're going to be good to go with some yummy French onion soup on a cold day. Although, thank goodness it is getting a smidge warmer. I don't know if anybody went out at 7 o'clock this morning, but it was cold. Cold.
If you were going to do multiple, Chef Alexandra, like small dishes at the same time in the oven, could you put them on a tray?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and I
Okay.
actually had the tray here, but I was so excited to put it in, I didn't use it. The reason I recommend trays, even if you're doing one or two, is because it might come up, or depends on how filled you do it. And then you have cheese that's gone to the bottom of your oven and that has, you know, I mean, it's not going to cause a fire or anything, but it's a bore to clean. So putting it on a tray is way better of a method to do that, so that you don't have a cheesy disaster mess from its method. Especially since the whole point of doing this is having a nice cheesy melt that you don't want to be skimping on it. That's why I'm saying like one slice is just, it's not going to be enough. It's just going to be a you know, a mild here we go, a mild taste. So this, my friends, is what it looks like. So if you can see here, I don't want to spill the soup everywhere. Oh, here, put this down. There we go. So you see here, you have the little brown piece. The bread has risen to the top with our cheesy goodness and our soup.
That looks delicious.
So the other cautionary tale of this is it's hot. So although it's very exciting and you want to eat it right away, you want to be very careful putting your spoon in and eating it, because the cheese will stick to the top of your mouth and melt your palate. So lovely soup, but yeah, give it a second or two to serve it. It's not going to go bad on the table. You'll get the smell, all your juices and salivating will start, and then you can eat it safely and soundly. But yes, make sure that that first bite you're blowing on it as if you were 5 years old, because it's hot stuff. So there you go. French onion soup, gratiné with the cheese. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Chef Alexandra. That looks
You're
delicious.
welcome.
I love French onion soup. And as you said, that is a perfect meal for this evening. So thank you again. We're going to take a really quick 3-minute break, and then we're going to come back to the second part of our show. Kinyofu's going to talk about membership and volunteering with the organization. So a really quick break, and then we'll be back with Kinyofu. Okay, thank you.
I wasn't keeping time. Are we at 3 minutes now?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, great. So welcome back, everyone. Before we announce the next three raffle prizes, I'm going to, actually, no, that's not where I'm at. I'm sorry. Is that where I am?
You're absolutely in the right spot. Before
Okay.
you announce the next three raffle winners, just tell everybody a little bit about membership and volunteering, and then Bessie
Yes.
will do the raffle, and then we'll get to the next chef presentation. Thanks, Kinyo.
Sorry, that was a blooper. Y'all can edit that out. If you live in Greater Brookland and you're 18 or over, you could consider becoming a member. Members get access to social, wellness, and educational programming, age well workshops such as how to write a living will or how to prevent falls, and a team of vetted volunteers to help you with small house related projects or tech support. You can be a volunteer as well, or you can access the volunteers. So volunteers, we have Village Volunteer. They provide one-on-one support to our members, such as tech, housework, yard work, etc. The list goes on. And Strategic Volunteer, that's where you get to help the Brookland Village with things like planning, programs, coordinating volunteers, or fundraising. Lots of our volunteers are also members, and we'd love for you to consider doing both. Our village is shaped by our members and volunteers. You will create what you want to have in your community. How about that? And the links will be put in the chat to become a member as well as a volunteer, so you should you choose. So, Bessie, are we ready for the next drawing?
We're ready.
Okay.
So next up will be the ceramic dishes for the French onion soup, which is exciting. And that is going to Erin Malloy. I'm sorry. Thank you. And then next up is the $50 gift card to Total Wine for Alexandra Shandell. Yay. Then lastly, on this round, the $100 gift card to either Baker's Daughter, Michelle's, or Gravitas, which is a set of restaurants owned by one of our board members, Lindsay Jordan. And that is going to Christine Ryan. Super exciting. So I'll do the rest in a bit. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll pass it over to Kathy again to introduce our next chef.
Okay. Hello again. Chef Saskia Sams-Yeboah returns for a second year of this event, as Nadia mentioned earlier. A native Washingtonian, Saskia is passionate about creativity, beauty, health, mindfulness, food security, and community. Her passion for the culinary arts grew from watching her parents cook dishes from around the world. That passion was strengthened during her time studying culinary arts in Hawaii. And she actually just got back from a Hawaii trip just a few days ago. Her love of food is deeply connected and rooted to family, community, and overall connection to self and others. Saskia is a chocolatier, baker, caterer, and raw vegan chef, but her first love is chocolate. In 2021, Saskia launched a company called Belle Botanica that made organic chocolate-covered superfood candy bars that were sold locally. Saskia continues to partner with local businesses and organizations offering catering, charcuterie boards, and food demos. Currently, Saskia works as a volunteer coordinator at Food and Friends, a space where her love of food and community merges together. Saskia's motivation comes from her desire to learn, reach goals, realize her vision, and be an example to her 3-year-old son. So now I'm happy to turn the event over to Chef Saskia.
Thank you so much for that very warm welcome. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Saskia. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to be sharing a classic fruit tart today. So we're going to kind of go into, there's going to be 3 parts. The first part is the crust. So it's kind of like a pastry crust or a sweet crust. And then I'm going to be going into the pastry cream. So it's just a classic pastry cream. And then lastly, it's not really me showing you, but it's kind of like just decorating. And that's kind of where everyone can kind of tap into their own creativity. You can decorate as you please with like whatever fruits. Sometimes people do like a mix of fruits. You can do strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, kiwi, mango. So the sky's the limit depending on how you want to decorate. But yeah, I'm very excited to be here. And yeah, thanks for having me again for year number 2. Cool. All right, so we're gonna get started. I'm gonna just kind of arrange this so you guys can see. Okay, and I'm gonna be popping up and down, but I want you guys to kind of be able to see the bowl and what I'm doing. So the first step, we're gonna be combining our butter, our eggs, and our powdered sugar into a bowl, and we're gonna mix them. So I've pre-measured everything. I also just, as a suggestion, when, especially with baking, I mean, cooking as well, but especially with baking, it is good to be as exact as possible. So if there's an option to use a scale, I definitely suggest using a scale. It's a lot easier. And then also you can kind of put a bowl on the scale and then just kind of add things. So you don't have to always be measuring, and, you know, you can kind of like put your flour in and take a little bit off. So I definitely suggest using a scale. So I have some softened butter. The first step is to kind of make sure you have softened butter. You want to cut it into small pieces like this. So I'm going to just put this in the bowl. So next goes our egg yolks. I have 2 egg yolks. One trick that I do want to show about egg yolks, I don't know if anyone has any trouble cracking egg yolks, but I do want to show the method that I use. I think it's really cool. Hold on one second. Okay. So I just want to share this quick tip. I think sometimes egg yolks can be a little intimidating. You don't want, you know, your egg whites and your egg yolks to get together. You don't want shells in your bowl. So I just kind of want to share this little quick tip that I like. So instead of using your shell to kind of like go back and forth, what I like to do is I like to crack it open. And so I like to just use my hand. So I'll kind of just let the white kind of like fall, and I'll just use my hand instead of using that shell. And I think it's just a way easier method. Then you just have that nice little yolk right in your hand. So just a quick pro tip, y'all, just a pro tip. All right. So back to the recipe. So we've got our eggs, we've got our butter together, and then next we're going to add our powdered sugar. So powdered sugar, I have it measured out. It's about 50 grams. Also for the butter, it's 100 grams of butter, 2 egg yolks, and then 50 grams of powdered sugar. So that's all in the bowl. And then you kind of just want to mix everything up with an electric mixer. You can use a hand one, you can use one with a base. So I'm just kind of going to mix this stuff together. Okay, so just to show you, it's just well incorporated, pretty simple. So then next we're gonna take 150 grams of flour, which is about 1.25 cups, and we're just gonna sift it right over our mixture. So the way I like to sift, I like to get a whisk and kind of just like move everything around. It kind of just makes them go faster. How I like to do it. So you basically just whisk everything and just kind of get rid of any lumps. Pretty quick process.
I find sifting flour to be so satisfying. Like, that's like just like watching it be so fine.
Yes. It's a good feeling for sure.
And
like
why do we do that again? Just so it's not clumpy?
Yeah, so it's not clumpy and stuff. That's why I think we do it.
Sounds right.
I think that's why. I follow the recipes, But then we're gonna use about a pinch of salt. One other thing that I definitely suggest when it comes to salt, I never, even if I'm cooking, baking, whatever it may be, I never, even if it's like salt to taste, I don't ever put the salt right in. I always put salt in my hand first, and then I kind of sprinkle it in. It gives you a lot more control because you don't want to over salt anything you're making. So I like to have a little bit more control by just kind of putting it in my hand first. So I've got a little bit of salt. And then next, we're going to put a little bit of lemon rind. Definitely don't skip this step. It definitely adds just a nice, it's not like too lemony of a flavor, but it does add another level and dimension to the taste of the crust. So I'm just gonna, you guys can see, I'm using just like a microplane to kind of just grate some lemon zest in there. Go. And so then I'm gonna grab my spatula again, and I'm gonna just mix everything together. Once everything is mixed, the consistency should be pretty crumbly. It's not gonna be like a super smooth dough. So you just kind of mix it, get everything incorporated. You can also use your fingers. I prefer using the spatula. I definitely would not use an electric mixer because you don't want to over mix your flour. If you over mix flour, it kind of, you're over mixing the gluten and it'll make your pastry tough. So that's just another thing to kind of be cognizant of. So it's kind of like a crumbly mixture. Okay. And so next, we're gonna add a tablespoon of brandy, or about 15 milliliters. Gonna put 1 tablespoon in there. Okay. And then in the recipe, it does call for 2 to 3, but depending on where you are, the humidity, etc., I always start off with 1, and I've found that 1 tablespoon of ice cold water usually does the trick. So I'm just gonna add, I had some water just kind of sitting here with some ice in it, so it's ice cold. So I'm gonna add a tablespoon at a time, and then I'm gonna mix everything and see if I need more. But usually about a tablespoon will be good.
What's the point of the ice cold water?
I think that the ice cold water, I think it helps with tenderizing. I believe that's why you use the ice cold water. I think it just helps make a more tender crust. And I think also the brandy serves possibly for like flavor, but also to, tenderize the crust a little bit more as well. So you've got a kind of doughy consistency. That's looking good. And so next, we are going to basically put our dough into a round shape and then put it in the fridge. You want to have this, you want it to be in the fridge for about 30 minutes before rolling it out. So I'm going to use a sill pat. I just want you guys to, cold butter also helps avoid warming the butter and making dough mushy. Cool.
Or cold
And I-
water, maybe.
The cold water or the cold butter?
Both,
Th-
probably.
Chef Alexandra is saying
The cold
butter.
water will avoid the butter getting softer. So you want to use
Mm.
very cold water because otherwise your dough becomes too mushy. That's the reason for
Mm.
cold water.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Cool.
So
Thank
when
you.
I like to make it into a round, I like to put a little bit of flour onto the mat because the dough is quite sticky. So I want it to kind of, to be able to pick it up with ease instead of it like sticking to the mat after I kind of put it into the round shape. So I'm just gonna get all my dough.
Saskia, there's a question. Have you experimented with different alcohols like bourbon?
So I made this with, I made it not with a bourbon, but I made it with, it's a kind of liqueur. I can't remember, Di Serono. It's like, has like kind of like an almond flavor. So I have experimented with one other type of alcohol and it turned out well as well. And there was a little bit of like that almond flavor, which I really like the flavor of almond, but I know that the liquor has a lot less alcohol. So I'm not sure if it served exactly the same purpose as using like a brandy or what is this? Yeah, brandy.
What is the purpose?
I think it helps tenderize the crust.
Oh, maybe you said that
I
already.
think that's what it's for.
What was
Some-
the question?
What's the purpose of the alcohol in the
crust?
crust besides flavor?
Yeah, no. So it's not flavor. The alcohol will evaporate. So it helps keep your crust moist to work with it, but it will evaporate when it cooks and therefore it won't it won't be too wet throughout. It's only a working, so it helps you work with it. And then it evaporates.
Cool.
And so you want to use a white one. Usually vodka's I'm sorry, I missed the beginning, but it usually vodka is the most frequently used one. There you go.
Cool. So I'm just kind of like kneading it a little bit with the palm of my hand, but that's pretty good. I'm gonna put it into like this round shape. It's good to go. And then I'm just gonna put it in some plastic wrap and then put it in the fridge. I have another one in the fridge, so we're not gonna have to wait for a half hour, but we'll roll out the crust, put it in the oven. And it's cool because I was thinking about you, Alexandra, because last year you made the quiche. And so I believe last year you used saran wrap.
Yep.
And so we're gonna use saran wrap again.
It all
So-
depends on what type of weights you have. I frequently use like the little ball ones, or if you're not even using weights and you're using, peas or not peas, but beans, it's so much easier to lift it out of the oven. That's my sense on that.
Cool. I have I've got like the beanie bits, like I don't know if you're familiar with these ones, Chef, but they're these ones.
Yep, those are great.
Yeah, so we're gonna use those, but I know you can use beans. Sometimes people use rice as well. So there's lots of different options, but we'll do saran wrap again this year too. So I'm gonna throw this in the fridge and then I'm gonna grab the one that's already been sitting in the fridge for half an hour.
I'm feeling a little slow right now. What were the beanie bits or the rice for?
So to weight it down while it's baking so it doesn't like start rising up and kinda
We
keeps it
haven't
shaken.
gotten to that part yet. But after she rolls it out, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you'll see
Okay,
the suspense.
yeah. So this is one that I've had in the fridge for about half an hour. Just kind of show you me rolling it out. I am going to, so this is my pie tin. I like to use these. You can they're cool because once it's cooked, you can kind of pop it up. So I really like these. Give me 1 second. All right. Just gonna use a little bit of butter on the pan and flour just so it makes it a little bit easier to just kind of come out. So I'm just gonna like put some butter straight onto here. And so I like to put butter down. You can use any oil or any fat really. And then I like to put flour on top of it. Just kind of makes it, yeah, it just makes it better transition to coming out and popping out of the pan once it's cooked.
so
I'll put that on
we can use liquid oil.
I've used oil before. Yeah, you can put oil on the pan. You can use a spray, but definitely cover with flour afterwards.
Mhm.
So I'm just gonna put butter on this part too.
Are those reusable?
This?
Yes.
Yes. It's kind of like a spring form kind of pan. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen cheesecakes being made, but it's kind of similar concept. The sides it kind of pops open and you can push the base up. I really like it. So nice and greased. And then I have a little bit of extra flour that I'm going to use to coat the sides and coat everything. Okay. So put that back in. Just going to put some flour on there. Kind of just like get it all around. Quick shake. That's it. Get rid of the excess. All right. So that's that. So I'm just going to clean up a little bit. Surface. All right. So next we are going to be rolling out our dough. We want to get about 1/8 of an inch thickness. Again, also I like to kind of dust some flour on my rolling pin as well. Just makes it a little bit, yeah, better to work with. Dough can get sticky, so you kind of want everything to be covered in flour to kind of prevent it from sticking. So I'm just gonna roll it. When I roll, I like to roll in a couple different ways. I like to be on the sides like this when I like initially start. But I also, when you're kind of wanting to get everything even, if you want to smooth out specific sides, you kind of can go in, like feel where it needs to be rolled out more and kind of like put more pressure. You can kind of control it a little bit better when you kind of go into the center and like roll it out to kind of even everything out. Gonna move this together. And so the trick with rolling as well, you want this to be about at least 1.5 to 2 inches larger than the whole pan. That's kind of just so that it can like reach up the sides. So right here, I have about 1/8 of an inch. Now I'm just kind of gonna really pay attention to what I'm doing, kind of like really smooth it out to make sure everything's the same size. I don't want it to be like 1/8 of an inch in one area and 1/4 of an inch in another area. So I'm kind of just like, sometimes I'll like get down low and kind of see, like look all around, kind of move it around, see how it looks. I think we're running low on time, so I'll try to be quick.
There's a piece that's where the dough doesn't come together. Is that going to be a problem?
No, shouldn't be a problem because we want it to be bigger than the pan. So, let's see. See, even like it shouldn't be a problem. I can kind of like smush it together too. So it's a little bit bigger than the pan right now. I'm gonna kind of roll it out just a little bit more and then I'm gonna put it in. And then it bakes for about 12 to 15 minutes. I'm gonna put the beads inside of it. It's gonna bake for about 12 to 15 minutes. Then I'll take all the beads out and then bake it for a couple more minutes without the beads or the beans inside. Just gonna roll it out a little bit more.
You're okay on time, Saskia.
Am I?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're fine.
Okay. All right, it's looking pretty good. I'm just gonna kind of measure it against my actual, and then that little section, I'll kind of just like put it together. Kind of like just go like that. So then what I like to do, so I kind of put this down first, like that. And I like to kind of flip it in. I find that to be like the easiest way. So I'll just kind of like put my hand underneath to kind of stabilize it and just like flip it like that. So now it's in. Flowers everywhere, but you know, kind of comes with the territory of baking. So now it's in, kind of just like lightly press it down. And then the thing that's cool about the shell, or not the shell, but the pan, is you can kind of use the edge of it to cut it. So it kind of just like press down on it like that. I want to make sure it's like getting in there, like all the sides. But when it comes to taking the excess off, you can kind of just push down and it kind of, you can use your finger and the pan to kind of cut off the excess like that.
Out of curiosity, what do you do with the excess?
Well, you could bake it. You could, I mean, you could make another tart with it if you wanted to.
My grandmother used to bake and she would take those little sides and make little turnovers for me.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, so that's what we're working with right now. All right, so we're gonna use Chef Alexandra's method. And correct me if I'm doing it wrong in any way, but got some saran wrap. Just gonna get some out. And Chef, can it go, it needs to stay inside, correct?
Correct. You don't want it to be touching the metal of the baking sheet. So I usually have it a little bit longer, but then I kind of bunch it back over inside.
Okay, okay, sounds good. So we'll kind of just bunch it inside. Don't want to touch the metal, as Chef Alexandra said. And this is such a cool tip because, I mean, it definitely just like kind of adheres to the, it stays inside better than like foil. It really like hugs everything. So that's kind of that. It's in. And then we're gonna use the bean bits to lay it down. And again, you can kind of use like rice or regular beans as well. Those work too. So just kind of put those in.
If you didn't use saran wrap, what would happen, or foil? Like, would they bake into it? Tough question, sorry. I just wonder if you have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's possible. Or it might just, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that the foil and the saran wrap is to try, kind of like make it easier to take out. And then, yeah, you don't want it to kind of like, you don't want it to start baking in either. Because it's wet at first, you know, it's not, there's a lot of butter in there. So while it's cooking, it's kind of wet and they could just kind of like fall in. So even like with this crust, you have to take the beans out for the last like few minutes because it's wet on the bottom. Like the sides will cook, but then the actual base will still be kind of wet. So that's what it looks like. I'm gonna pop that in the oven, and then we're gonna move on to our custard. And then I have a pie shell that's already done as well. So we'll just kind of make the custard, put it in, and then we'll decorate with some fruit.
Are those beans reusable?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But they're not edible?
No, they're not. Okay. And I'm going to just set a little alarm because I just don't want it to burn. Okay. Okay. So next we're going to move on to the custard. The custard's really quick to make. It's actually like a custard, but it's technically called a pastry cream. Few ingredients, pretty simple. Kind of need to be a little bit quick because you don't want it to burn and it cooks really quickly. So I'm going to change the direction of the screen so you can kind of see what I'm doing. All right. So I've got a cup of milk that I've already weighed out. A cup of milk or 250 grams. All my stuff is here.
I see you have a large pot. Is that mandatory?
What did you say?
You have a large pot. Is that mandatory?
Versus like a smaller pot or like?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a pot that size.
No, you could use a smaller pot. You're not making, it's not a ton. And I'll kind of show you what it looks like when everything's in. So yeah, you could use a smaller pot.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to turn the heat on. We're going to go for like a medium high, like kind of just like a medium. I put the milk in. So we got a cup of milk. Turn it up a little bit. And so then in another bowl, I've got 3 egg yolks. Okay, so I've got 3 egg yolks. Just grab this. And so I'm going to put my egg yolks in a non-aluminum bowl. So I'm just going to add those in.
Why
And then
a non-aluminum?
You know, I don't know. I think there might be some sort of reaction that happens with the eggs and the milk and the cornstarch, but I'm not 100% sure what that reaction is that you don't want. I don't know if, because it's basically milk, eggs, cornstarch, and sugar, but I'm not sure what certain things you don't want to cook in certain kinds of pots. Like I know there's copper pots and you don't want, yeah, Chef Alexandra.
The question was why. So Saskia said to put the egg yolks in a non-aluminum pan, and I want to know why.
Yeah, it's oxidation. And so yolks are really sensitive to aluminum metal. Usually once, I mean, like I don't do it if I'm doing the yolks by themselves. Once they're in a cream, it makes a little bit less of a difference. It's just a good general rule to try to avoid it. Yeah. Oxidation of the eggs.
So I'm just whisking up my eggs and my sugar. I've got about 50 grams of sugar. And so once that's kind of all whisked up, you just gotta, incorporate it together. Then you add in the cornstarch. I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch that I've already kind of measured out.
Which is important for thickening, right?
Yes, exactly. Just gonna mix that together. And so you want the milk to kind of come to like a simmer, like somewhere between like a simmer and a boil. And so once it's heated up, it's almost there. It's starting to kind of simmer a little bit. I'm going to gradually pour in the hot milk into the egg, sugar, and cornstarch mixture. And I'm going to kind of mix it. I'm going to mix it at the same time. So it's kind of like steaming. It's bubbling. It's really hot. So I'm going to turn this off. And so like I'm going to gradually pour a little bit at a time. I don't know if I can kind of see, but and like I'm going to try to mix it at the same time. Has anybody is anybody familiar with fruit tarts? Has anybody had fruit tarts or like fruit tarts? Has anybody tried Firehook Bakery's fruit tarts? They're really good.
I love fruit tarts.
Love fruit tarts?
I love the custard, the part you're doing right now.
Yeah.
I don't even need the fruit on top, honestly. I mean, it's nice. It adds yeah, but just that custard is so good.
Yes. So we're gonna keep putting it in, gradually mixing. And so I did make this one time. And one of the steps, it kind of requires you to strain the custard. And I made it and I was like, oh, there's no lumps in it. It's fine. The next day I was like, this is all lumpy. So it can fool you. So don't skip the straining step. I tried to strain just like in something similar like what I use to sift. But if it gets really thick, it doesn't work as well. So I suggest like using some cheesecloth. Okay, almost done.
Another trick I'll totally add in here is with the cornstarch, if you put some of your milk, cold milk, cornstarch, so just, not even a quarter cup, and stir your cornstarch. It will liquefy the cornstarch, melt it in, and then you put it in with your eggs. Then you just go back to the regular mixer, but it will help avoid any little clumps of the cornstarch which you can whisk and whisk and whisk, and they sometimes will be tenacious and stick through. So moistening that cornstarch first will help avoid that.
Okay, cool. That's really helpful to know, because you don't want lumpy custard.
No, nor do you want a bite of cornstarch.
No. So you just add the cornstarch in. You just add it into the like a quarter of the cold milk, and that kind of dissolves it. And
Yep.
okay, cool. That's really good to know. All right, so that's that. We're gonna go back to our medium-high heat. We are going to put our custard pastry cream, if you will, back into the bowl. We're just gonna start whisking. You can see, probably not, but. So basically you just want to whisk vigorously, and it takes about 2 minutes, but it's a pretty quick process. And then it'll kind of just start thickening up really quickly. It's like once it starts thickening up, it's quick. And I don't know if everyone's familiar with cheesecloth, but this is what it looks like. So I kind of have this ready over a bowl. So once my custard's thickened up, I can just transfer it right into my cheesecloth and kind of strain it out. Just a little bit.
I have bought cheesecloth before at like Annie's Ace Hardware. Like, I don't
You
know
said
if
you
they
bought
sell.
it from Annie.
Yeah, I have bought it from the hardware store. I don't know if like Giant sells cheesecloth. Just
Yeah.
mhm.
I think they have it. I think they do sell it at Whole Foods. I think they have it at, you can definitely get it on Amazon. What's that one? Like, not Pottery Barn, but you might be able to get it like Bed Bath and Beyond. But when in doubt, the internet can get it. Okay, it's kind of starting to heat up. I'm gonna start mixing it. All right, so now it's kind of starting to thicken, so I'm gonna just turn my heat off. Once it like thickens, it goes pretty quick. Take it off the heat. So that's the custard, or that's the pastry cream. And so then I'm gonna just use my spatula and I'm gonna get it into my cheesecloth, and I'm gonna just strain it out. But I'll definitely try that method that you were talking about, Chef Alexandra, because that seems like a really good way to avoid having like clumps and stuff.
Yep, how to make your life easier.
Yes. So then I'm just gonna kind of like squeeze it through. It is really hot. So I'm kind of just kind of just like not touching it directly, but like, and then I'm using a cloth to kind of like cool my hand down, but it's coming out. And so after you strain everything, you want to immediately put a piece of saran wrap on top of it and put it into the fridge to cool down.
Would using that cornstarch trick avoid you having to do this?
I think it would definitely probably help for sure.
So
Yeah.
you wouldn't do this, or you would still do it?
And no, so I usually do, well, it all depends on what I'm making, but 90%, maybe 75% of the time, I don't do it because I don't need to.
Yeah, so that's a great.
Sifting your flour obviously helps as well. If you're using flour instead of cornstarch, which can be used a slightly different quantity. But yes, the trick is definitely wetting your cornstarch with some cold milk. Then you whisk it in with the eggs and the sugar, and then put your milk in. Also, and obviously a bit tricky when you're just you, but whisking and pouring at the same time continuously. So if you do a little pour mix, that will create more risk of creating lumps versus whisking and pouring at the same time. So sometimes you can use a stand machine, a stand mixer, because that way it's doing the mixing while you're pouring. You just don't want to make it too fast, but that will avoid the lumps, and you don't like, there won't be any lumps. You don't need to do it.
Gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So I have a custard that I already made prior as well, but my timer went off, so I'm gonna take the beans out of my shell.
So you're gonna take the beans out and then put it back in for a couple of minutes?
Yes.
Would this be a good time for us to do the last raffle draw? Or do you need to explain anything?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Great, Bessie, our final
Okay.
raffle draw.
Last couple of raffles. So $100 gift card to Delphine's, which is a DC New Orleans cuisine that is delicious. It's going to Alita Brawlis Gerard. And then a gift of apron and dish towels to be able to use when you are recreating these recipes at home. Ellen Louis. And then one of these wonderful classic fruit tarts that we've been talking about, it's going to Khalida Ali. And then 2 portions of Chef Alexandra's wonderful French onion soup is going to Nadia Mercer.
Woohoo!
So that last one also super deserving. But yeah, that's the last bit of the raffles.
That's so funny because it's in my freezer for the winter right
That's
now.
so
I ordered that from
funny.
Alexandra yesterday,
I heard
and
today that-
I'm hungry. So this is
That
perfect.
is funny.
like little does she know.
Yep.
Nadia, do you want me to go ahead and say my thank yous while Chef Saskia is finishing up? They'll take like 1 or 2 minutes.
Sure.
And this is the crust, if you guys
Okay.
can see it. Quick, just little glance. So actually, from
Beautiful.
doing Chef Alexandra's method, it also just like cooks, it cooks better with the plastic rather than like foil. So definitely recommend, but yeah. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. So I want to thank Chefs Alexandra and Saskia for their wonderful presentations. Thank you to all our ticket buyers for helping us surpass our fundraising goal. Thanks to the GBIF board, especially Lindsay for a robust raffle, and Nadia, Bessie, and Kinyofu for helping to make this event happen. Please reach out to GBIF for more information about our programs. Happy 2023 and stay healthy and safe, everyone. And good night. And I wasn't sure if Chef Saskia was completely finished, but that's my thank you to everyone.
We can watch the final, stay on if you can, and
Yeah.
watch the final putting together of the fruit tart. This is
Yeah.
the exciting part, I'm sure, where we can see the pastry cream come together with the delicious crust and decorate the top.
Yes. So kind of just I just kind of like put some of it in. And then I have, here, let me hold on 1 second. Let me get my little spatula.
Can you bring the screen down a little bit more?
Yeah, I'm give me 1 second. Just getting a better spatula. Where's my little, here we go. So, I don't know if you can see. I've got the cream. I know my lighting's kind of a little, not the best, but I like to use this this kind of spatula to I just put it in with the bigger spatula, and then I like to use this to kind of smooth everything out and try to make it, as even as possible. Sometimes people use a piping bag, like they might put the cream. I don't know if you're familiar with seeing like people who frost cookies or frost cakes. You can use a piping bag. I think it works just fine if you kind of just put it in with a spatula and then like kind of smooth it all around. Okay. All right, and then I've got just some fruit. I've got some fresh strawberries and kiwi. I've got some blueberries and blackberries, and you can kind of just decorate it however you would want. There's no like right way. Just putting some strawberries down. You can kind of do like mix and match. I also like putting, I really like doing a mango as well. Kind of just gonna fill some of these little other areas with some blueberries. Put like a blackberry here. But yeah, there's no, I mean, you can do it. You could do all strawberries if you want. I don't know if you can see. You could do all strawberries, but just kind of build it up. Kind of like layering a little bit, works really nicely. Got some more of this beautiful kiwi. Yeah, and I'll do like another layer of strawberry on there. But yeah, there's no, specific way that you have to decorate it. It's whatever you really want to do.
So beautiful.
But yeah, it's like a fun thing. I feel like anybody can really make it. Definitely, I want to practice and incorporate Chef Alexandra's tips. She's an amazing chef and has great tips and ideas, because you definitely don't want like a lumpy situation going on. Just gonna put some blackberries on there, a little bit more strawberry. So that's kind of like how it's coming so far. Gonna throw some blueberries on there. I don't know if y'all can see it.
Mhm.
And you just want to like make sure, try to like cover as much of you don't want the cream showing. So another thing is, if you eat it right away, you don't need to glaze it. Like if you're gonna make it for a party, you don't have to glaze it. If you're gonna keep it for a few days, a glaze is definitely recommended. There's a couple, you can look some up online, but another thing you can do is just take some apricot jam, add a little bit of water to it and put it on the stove, kind of like whisk it up and then use a strainer to get out any lumps. And then you take a brush and kind of brush over all the fruit. So that'll give it that really pretty shine that people are used to seeing when they buy fruit tarts. And it's kind of like helps preserve the fruit if you're not serving it right away. Yeah.
Good to know.
Mhm.
So the tip with that is using any jelly that doesn't have seeds. So you don't want to be like, ooh, I love apricot jam, and you have one that's like all rustic handmade. You don't want the seeds in it. So it's either the apricot or even apple jelly will work fine. Same process, just a little bit of water. I sometimes am lazy, use the microwave.
Yep.
It up, and that will create the shine, but try to avoid doing it with the seeds because then it's a whole different look.
So you wouldn't suggest like a strawberry jam because that would be, or like a raspberry
Love the
jam because
taste
that'd
of
be
it, but
seeds.
that's not going to do what you want to do. No strawberry, no raspberry. Really, apple and apricot are the two
The
best
go-tos.
for good jellies. Yep.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm just gonna kind of pile some fruit on here, a little bit more. Yeah, that's, you can do it on the stove top. You can do it, you know, in the microwave, as Chef said. But yeah, any way you want to decorate. I'm almost done decorating it. Just kind of building it out. And this is like a great thing to do with like family members too. Like you could even pre-make the tart and just have people decorate tarts. Another fun thing to do is kind of like mini tarts. Like you can get smaller shells. They have like different shapes too. Like you have circular ones, but you also have like rectangles. So that's another thing that you can kind of do. Make small tarts. And they also make great gifts. You know, you can make a big tart like for an event or like going to a friend's house, or you could make kind of like the smaller tarts for like little gifts and stuff. So I'm kind of just gonna put a little bit of random blueberries around, and then I'll show you guys the tart. And yep, basically nice and fruity and delicious, and yeah, cover up any little extra cream popping out. But yeah, that is the fruit tart.
Beautiful.
Thank you guys so
Thank you.
much.
Yes.
I'm really, grateful to share with you guys and then also learn from you, Chef. And thank you so much for having me back again. Really cool.
Great to have both of you.
Thanks so much. It was great seeing everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you, chefs.
Thank you,
Bye. Thank you
everyone.
so much.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you, everyone.
Enjoy your
Thank you.
dinners.
Night. Happy 2023.
Yes, thank you. Bye.